Hello, aliens. Hello, Earthlings. Welcome to the Great Transition, where we will look at everything that's going on in the world from both perspectives, from below to above and from above to below, depending on where on the ladder you find yourself or what kind of creature you are. We know some of you. We don't know all of you yet, but if you'd like to, we welcome people who agree with us, people who are skeptical. Uh, do you hear a funny noise
No,
coming
I
from my
think I think we're
speaker?
good.
No, okay, it might just be in my headphones.
You know,
Okay,
maybe there's a little bit of static on your end, but it's really subtle, really subtle. I don't
okay,
think,
I'll move
yeah.
it later. Okay, here we are, great transition every Thursday on the Kabbalahinfo channel, talking about what's going on in this world through the lens of the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. Today, well, it's been quite a life, but the last week has been pretty dramatic again. We're going to leave all of the chaos of the virus and the variants, the Delta and the Lambda and the Pfizer and the Moderna and the J&J and the Russian one and the Chinese one and the Dr. Fauci and the lab leak, and we'll leave all the virus stuff to the side for a
Right.
while. Why? You know what they do during a
So we're putting that show on pause for a second, you know, just that it's
Well,
like
you know
a
what they do? The
yeah,
joke, you obviously know the joke because you live there, but during what happens during a ceasefire, it's just when everyone like restocks up on their weapons. So we're
right.
going to put the virus conversation to the side for a little bit,
Yeah,
and talk.
restocking, by the way, there's nature's restocking. It's there they just found like viruses in the Arctic or something like that, like that are going to from 15,000 years ago that are now
In the
defreezing.
ice that's melting.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's on pause. That's not for today.
That's not for today. Today we're
Right.
going to talk about other natural phenomenon. Humans are also part of nature. Um, we call on this show we call
No.
ourselves monk.
No.
That's true. But
No.
on this show, we call ourselves Monkey Plus, not yet human. On our way towards being human, human being that Adam, that spiritual creature who actually exists now. Our soul exists there now. We're just not we're not conscious of it. But
Hmm.
let's start all the way on the ground and work our way up. There's been
Okay.
all kind of things happening, especially the floods, fires, winds, and also some monkey pluses shooting themselves up into space in giant phallic-looking rockets. Anyway, yesterday my younger son needed some deodorant, and we took a quick ride to the pharmacy in town,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like this really cool haze in town. And sometimes you see it like if after like I thought it was because of rain. We had a crazy rainstorm. I mean, crazy, not compared to what else is going on in the world, but we had a big rainstorm here on Sunday. The
Hmm.
power went out. It was like lightning for hours. So I thought it was kind of like an after effect from all of
Wait,
this
this
rain.
happened when? Like
Sun our Sunday night.
in New Jersey, there was a lightning storm?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Isn't it
huge,
like
huge storm.
isn't it summer? I'm
Yeah, it's
confused.
summer. It's summer. So we've had a few
Really?
big storms this summer. This one
Okay.
was really big lightning for a
This
couple
is
hours.
this
It
is
was
common.
magnificent to see.
We never have lightning storms in the summer.
Mm, I don't remember if it's how common it is, but this one seemed pretty
Okay.
extra. Um,
Okay.
I
Okay.
thought it was, mist or whatever in the air. I didn't really think anything of it. Um, my son actually had a good idea. He said, what if the government just filled the air with like marijuana smoke? Because now it's legal in New Jersey. He said they could calm
Hmm.
everyone down. He said if people start to get I explained to him they wouldn't have to use marijuana. They would just actually make a chemical, the specific chemical to get everyone to
Hmm.
calm down, or the specific chemical to get everyone to be
Hmm.
obedient. Um, that's not what I'm talking about though. But it was a clever kid. He's like, wow,
How
couldn't the
old is he?
government just?
This is
He's
your
14.
16. This is your
Or my
14-year-old.
14. He's like, couldn't the
Mm-hmm.
government just make like a cloud? I mean, he was thinking about it from the, more of the fun aspect
Hmm.
of it. Couldn't they just fill it with? Yeah, well, that's exactly what could be. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Without
I mean,
even you making
that's
like an odorless,
hmm.
visualless fog of something in a town
Uh,
or in a city, and just
totally doable.
also, So
So
doable. Okay.
yeah.
Anyway, not what we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. So there was this fog haze, and I thought it was moisture from the rainstorm. So you know that Earth is a closed system. We talked about a few weeks ago how the water travels around the whole globe, you know,
Right.
in these patterns, right? And also the wind travels around. It's not going out of the system and then
Yeah.
like coming back, or maybe it's just one system.
Yeah.
So the like Europeans are kind of breathing New Jersey air, you know, air from North America, and South America is breathing African air because of the way the winds go.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
Well, how far am I from you? Do you remember? Chris told us it's I think more
Couple
than three.
thousand miles.
It was over 5,000 miles. Yeah.
Okay, over 5,000. So
Okay.
California is about 3,000 from here. So I'm on the east coast of the United States. If you
Yeah.
look at a picture of the United States, I'm all the way on the right hand side. California is all the way on the left hand side.
Okay.
Um, that's about 3,000 miles, maybe 3,000 and change. There's been huge fires out on
Mm-hmm.
the West Coast. It turns out that the haze that's in my town is from those fires on the West Coast. It
Mm.
turns out that
Mm-hmm.
New York City saw its worst air quality in 14 years, attributed to those
Mm-hmm.
wildfires on the West Coast of the United States. So
Wow.
people all over, yeah, there was a not that I would think that it's not that I would say that the New York Times is a credible newspaper, but the New York Times just had a whole thing about this, that people are getting sore throats, and people, if you have respiratory, all this stuff because of the fire in California. Now, why I bring that up? The purpose of bringing that up
Mm-hmm.
is because,
Well, it's a closed
first of all,
system
it's a
that,
closed
yeah.
system.
Yeah.
And it's so clear
Yeah.
that how things that we didn't even think were
Yeah.
affecting us
Mm-hmm.
are affecting us, and more.
And if you
Like,
think, if you just look at what's happening in the last few dozen years, what's happening, it's pretty much not something anyone would argue about. We're just this gradually discovering more and more and more how much we are a closed system. It's just gradually we're seeing it in every aspect, you know, ecologically, economically, politically, internetly, you know, we're just seeing how all these laws of nature are closing in on us from every direction. Every and COVID, you know, an infection one place is an infection anywhere. But you wanted to talk about space, man, didn't you?
no, you wanted to
I
talk
mean,
about
I
space.
wanted to talk about
I
space,
tried to find it interesting all
but you
week, but
agreed.
I agreed to talk about space. I wanted to talk about the floods that have been going on all over the Earth, and we agreed to figure out a way to see some connection between these two absurd
Right.
polar differences. That,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, you know, sending these ships into space, and I did a Google search for like phallic objects in history.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the Jeff Bezos like
I have.
spaceship, which looks like a human
It
body
it
part. By the
looks
way,
like
his
the
logo for his company also is the same
mm-hmm.
shape. I mean, it's on an angle, but it's, you know, it goes throughout time. I mean, this is like a
Yeah.
thing that like powerful people did, is like built these. It's not a
This
like,
is,
you know.
yeah, it has to, you know, it's funny, but it has to do with human nature. Clearly, it has to do with human evolution. Clearly, and you know, this whole thing that we started building up, like skyscrapers and you know, tall buildings, that whole idea is something that is over throughout history has been conflated or connected to our ability to rule the forces of nature or to bend them to our benefit. You know, the tower, the famous story about the Tower of Babel. They wanted to build a tower up to the skies, right? It's this
Mhm.
whole. There's something about us going up that is mostly demonstrated by males, um, and it represents this male quality, this male tendency of trying to like manhandle nature, reality, the forces of nature trying to take control. There are some symbolic things here that I think play into or together with our psyche and manifest in what we do, what we build, technology we create, and so forth.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably why I'm just so not interested in this story. I don't have any problem with technological progress, and I probably out of this,
Mm-hmm.
some will learn something about life, or something will become clearer to the people. It's, for example, you can explain to a person
Yeah.
um, many different spiritual concepts, but until we had one's not coming to mind, maybe you can help me, but until we have like modern science to explain it, to illustrate it, it's hard for the mind to grasp it. It sounds like it's mysticism, or it sounds so. There is a benefit for all of these uh, scientific developments, because it helps um, clothe onto these many spiritual concepts, which otherwise just it's hard for a person to grasp. So probably we'll discover some things through all of these guys shooting themselves into space that will help everyone understand some truths. But in general, it just seems like, at the same time, nature farts and kills, wipes out an entire town
Right.
just
Right.
like this,
I think
and it could
I think
happen.
in Germany there's a village with like maybe 200 people or something like that just died, drowned in a flood. Like that happened within, moments. That's insane.
I don't know. The
Um,
numbers,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm becoming desensitized to these numbers or whatever. It's
No,
weird because
just the scene, the
but the
picture.
scenes are just
Yes,
incredible.
exactly.
Um,
Y-
there's so it turns out it's not just Germany. It's Germany, it's Austria, it's also in the Middle East. And Oman had crazy
mhm.
floods. China has insane floods. India has insane floods. Um, oh yeah, Chris, bring it on, baby. What do we got here? Yeah, where's this? Germany.
Yeah, this one's Germany. We've got this is Austria. It all looks the same. It's just devastating. It's like I just thank God for the internet, because now you can look and kind of put yourself. Oh, I'm standing on this balcony. Those are all the people that I know. That's all the stuff that's mine.
Oh my God.
You can't
Mm.
before you couldn't really
Oh
put
no!
yourself in that
Wow, this
position. But
this
it's like
person's
it's
like
so like these are people. These could be people that I know. Because it's not. I don't feel it as much. But man, these videos really do.
Wow.
They do something.
right.
What else you got
Okay.
there? It looks like you got a lot of things
Maybe
lined up. Hold
you
on
want to
before.
you want to see all of it?
Yeah, just show.
It's
You got
pretty
anything else?
daunting.
Just show me. Just show me something else.
This one's India, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so Asaf, this brings up what Chris, what you just
Okay.
said brings up a really good point.
Uh,
You know, as the Earth was on fire. Wow.
this is the aftermath.
This is their cleaning. This is them throwing all the junk out into the street.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
This is New York City.
Crazy
This is
stuff.
this is the New York City subway last week.
Ooh,
Yeah.
haven't been there in a
Um,
while. Definitely not
so
like that.
uh,
Hmm.
you know, there's always been floods. There's always been fires. I wonder if there's more than there always has been, or if it's just that we feel it all now. We see what's going on all
Pl-
around the world.
Plus, at the same time, this is something that definitely never happened before. At the same time, you have these Bransons and Bezoses and whatever, like the billionaires of the world, that are, saying goodbye to this miserable planet. Symbolically, they're basically like, oh well, the planet's on fire and floods and hurricanes and whatever it is, and we just go to space, and even make money out of it. Um, and and I still need to convince you that this juxtaposition is interesting. That there's something to learn from the fact
No,
that this is happening
I
at the same
can't.
time.
I'm having a really hard time getting excited about these guys going into space.
Okay. I'm not excited about these guys. But I am excited about what's happening. And there's a lot of headlines right now. There's a lot of journalists who are writing about this juxtaposition. This by itself, I think, is already a good thing. Meaning, people are talking about this weird picture that appears to our eyes in the 21st century, where on the one hand, people are suffering, some are drowning to death or struggling to stay alive amidst fires and hurricanes and floods. And then at the same time, you have these billionaires celebrated by the media as these superheroes that have managed to use their billions in order to launch themselves to space and feel weightless for a few minutes. So the paradox, the fact that we exist at a time where these two things are happening at the same time is interesting, and it brings up all kinds of questions about inequality, justice. Is it okay? Is it like moral questions, things like that? But I don't even think, but even that is like judging it from a certain kind of political or social point of view. I'm interested in the bigger picture, meaning how how is it that mankind at the same time is discovering its relationship with the laws of nature as being more dependent on the laws of nature. All of a sudden, in Germany, they built. I heard this one of the officers there talking in some video article. Anyway, he said that they have one of the most advanced systems for predicting floods in the world, and it couldn't do a thing. From this flood, they discovered that it was basically they built it all wrong. They couldn't imagine what was coming, even with their technology. And so and you have people climbing up to their attics or their rooftops to stay alive. So on the one hand, you have mankind discovering its helplessness, powerlessness, nothingness, smallness compared to the laws of nature. And then at the same time, you have mankind going to on a new pursuit to take over space. That is what I think is interesting. The relationship that we have with nature, with the natural system, is growing in a tension. It's growing like an opposite cone. Like there's two extreme points. On the one hand, we feel nature is greater than us. On the other hand, we feel greater than nature. And both of these extremes are growing at the same time, because when a few billionaires go up to space for a few minutes and take some pictures and the media is celebrating them as heroes, it's not just a few people. Mass psychology is now changing. You have masses of people that are suddenly thinking, oh, that is something that we people can do now. Okay, I agree, it's fine. But in the past, this was reserved for scientific exploration. Scientists had to have whole governments standing behind them in order to go and research something in space. And all of a sudden, now it's a few billionaires who are doing it, and they want to industrialize it and make money off it, of course. But that means that you're going to have more people going in there. And so in a moment with these images of seeing Bezos in space and whatever, I think humans are changing their attitude, even if just a subtle thing. We're changing our attitude towards the laws of nature. Why? Because space, that I think you need to I realize you're I'll tell our viewers that when we discussed this as a topic for the show, when we had an exchange about this being a topic for the show, then Seth is not convinced, you guys, that space is interesting, or at least that it's sufficiently interesting for us to discuss. But I think otherwise.
You need to
Space.
qualify that statement. I loved going to the
I just wanted
planetarium.
to trigger you a little bit. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you did. I love going to the planetarium. My mind is blown when I wrote the second book, the You Are Here book. I was looking at all kind of numbers of so of our how many stars there are in the Milky Way galaxy, and that the Milky Way galaxy is only like one of a bunch of billion galaxies, and
Mm-hmm.
then everything that we know is only the known universe.
Right.
It We are so small.
And
You
we
don't
have no idea what's out there. What do you have? You have theoretical physicists speculating, making careers out of
no
speculating, which is fine. And of course, it teaches us a lot, but still, we've never been there. And the idea of space is almost synonymous with the idea of the unknown. And so
the
yeah, go ahead. What?
what we do in the wisdom of Kabbalah, how do you say this without sounding kind of pretentious, but this kind of thing of putting together a couple $100 million worth of steel filled with jet fuel
Mm-hmm.
to go. If you took a globe, like you have a globe in your house, we have one in the kitchen, like a globe, the Earth.
Yeah, sure.
We used to have in the classroom.
Yeah, I actually have a little what do you call it? Like a inflatable ball that you play
That's
with.
the Earth.
That's the Earth. Yeah. Like,
Okay, so we have one in
okay.
the kitchen. You
Does
can
that
spin
work
it.
for you? Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. It's about this big.
Mm-hmm.
I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson explain how high that these guys went. If you took that globe
Yeah.
and in perspective, the height of the that they went off
Yeah.
of the
It's
Earth,
just a little bit off the Earth. That's
less
it. Right.
a fraction of that blue part right there,
Right.
in
Mhm.
nothing,
No, no.
nothing
I
with
get
nothing.
that.
So what's not exciting me, my
Mm-hmm.
mind is blown by the size of space and
Mm-hmm.
our significance, that humans are the center, that all of that, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, all of that is managed and rises and
Right.
falls with us. Everything that we see exists only inside of us. I'm blown away by
but
all of
we
that.
but we are
This
getting closer to this realization through these things that are happening.
Okay, prove it.
Okay, the the what I'm saying is that
Talk to me about
the
the news through the lens of the wisdom of Kabbalah, please.
yeah the these what it's not about how high they went above Earth. It's that it's the conceptual thing that is happening right now. Space to us, like you said, we feel the insignificance when we think about space. We feel that we're just this tiny insignificant speck in this ocean of the cosmos, and it puts us in awe in front of this infinite reality that is all around us, and we are somehow floating in it like tiny little specks of sand, right? That is something. This is something that humans live with. We are on this planet Earth. We look at the stars, and even when we're kids, we look up to the sky and we see something bigger than us, unknown to us. Now, the fact that people are now, and of course, it's just it's a few billionaires who are trying to make a bucket. The only thing that drives them is clearly making money, and there's nothing of that kind of a quest that I was discovered that I described is probably their main motivation. Of course not, but when suddenly space, I in terms of the idea, becomes more closer to us, more achievable, more accessible, that I think changes how we relate to the unknown, how we relate to those greater forces of nature that are around us. It makes us feel that somehow we've made a step forward, right? And so um, that's happening on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're also discovering that a tiny virus, spreads, and now you have to put a mask on your face, and you can't go to the to a football stadium or whatever it is, and there's a flood that comes in and paralyzes an entire village and kills people. So we have this split identity. Think about all of humanity as one person, right? One man. All of humanity, one person. So if we are all one person, it's like we have this split personality, this identity crisis, this kind of bipolar disorder when it comes to our attitude to nature. And this is going to become more and more evident from the Kabbalistic process that we are familiar with. And so I'm seeing here that this is, if you look at the big picture, this is what's happening. We are expanding our duality in our attitude to nature, our bipolarness, in that we're on the one hand feeling insignificant and small and dependent on the forces of nature a little more every day. We see especially the law of interdependence that ties us together, closed system. That is becoming something that we have to contend with. And then on the other hand, we're also seeing that, wait, we can go to space and occupy and colonize and whatever, make money out of space. And people are just, they're just like, they don't need to be a government, they don't need to be NASA, they just, they will now bring people who will be able to pay a few dollars up to space. So it changes something in our attitude to those greater forces of nature that are greater than us. And that is what I think is interesting, the evolving relationship of mankind with the laws of nature is what I'm seeing here. We are a unique creature, conscious superorganism that nature is gradually bringing up to respond to it. And on at face value, it just appears like disconnected events, and just a few people want to make
you ever
money.
seen
Yeah.
you ever had a hamster or a gerbil, like those pets, the little
Yeah,
like
we had
furry
two
things?
hamsters here. My son was into that, and
Okay, so
I
it
have a
probably didn't
joke
it
about
probably
that,
didn't
but
end
I'll what?
probably didn't end well. But you ever seen when they come up to the
It didn't
side,
end
and
well,
I'm
but
sure
okay.
it never does. You ever, when they come up to the wall and then they start scratching on the wall, and for 1 minute in your heart you're like, "Aw," like
Okay.
you're like for 1 second, and then you realize, oh, he's just a hamster, and you get over it. But you're like, oh no, you'll never be free. Like that's the
Mm,
boundary of your entire existence right
uh-huh.
there. So you should probably just turn back around and go on the wheel and enjoy yourself. It's just futile to scratch against that wall because you're never gonna get out of it. I may take you out for a few minutes, but then I'm gonna put you back in and go on with my life. Like you're nothing. You're a tiny little hamster stuck in a box for your whole life until you die.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's kind of like what I feel when I see the space thing. It's like
Right.
they're just
Right.
scratching at
But they're
something that
scratching. But they're scratching, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it exciting. The rat is figuring out that it's in a cage. It's figuring out that it
okay,
might
now I'm
want to
interested.
get out of the cage. Now, of course, you're right.
But they don't realize they're in a
The
cage yet. They
billionaires
think they're
don't
gonna.
realize it. No, and they don't even think. I think the effect on mass psychology, the psychology of masses of people from what's happening now with these few billionaires is much greater than what they're going through. They're just, from a Kabbalistic perspective, the more power and kind of status that you have in this world, usually it's in direct opposite to the level of free will that you have with regards to being conscious about the laws of nature, because the more you act as part of the program. Anyway,
Like
we're,
no, that's very
the
important.
the
Explain
hearts
that.
the hearts of kings and ministers is in the hands of
Okay,
of the
hold
of
on.
the
The
creator, say
quote
say the
is
Kabbalists.
the quote is
right. That's what Kabbalists said.
Tell us the quote first.
The heart of kings and ministers is in the hands of the creator or nature's governing force, however you want to call
Okay,
it.
so the most powerful people are
So they are
puppets to nature. So can you
driven.
explain that?
Yeah, they are. We think about our world as, the people who are at the top, as the people who have the most control, the most power, the most free will. But from a spiritual perspective, it is typically the opposite. I'm saying typically because,
Explain.
it's not a because the greater you are driven by, the more you are driven to reach the top, the more that means that you've been programmed to cut through and go through a lot in order to get there, at the account of doing other things and thinking about other things. So you are driven by a greater force, greater than you, to get to a certain position from which from which some parts of the natural program can unfold. And so this is why, Kabbalists don't relate a lot of importance to kings and emperors and leaders throughout history, but they do say that what happens through those kings and leaders and whatever, kings and ministers, right, is ultimately part of nature's plan. So there is an internal picture here, and there is an external picture. And the internal picture is that typically the people at the top have less free choice. Free choice in the wisdom of Kabbalah is also, it's not about how many, Bezos can choose to go to space and I can't. He can choose to change his house and I can't. Right? It's not that simple for me to do. So he has more free choice. Free choice is completely ill-defined, through the eyes of the ego. Free choice is about spiritual development. It's about questioning and exploring and discovering the meaning and purpose of your life. The more you're driven by the program, the less you can question it. Anyway, why did we go there?
I'm not sure.
I'm
not
not
sure.
sure either.
If we took the let me just change gears. Something I just thought about. If the back to the floods for a second. Know that the water. So there's this thing that one bolt of lightning can power New York City for who knows, a week, whatever it is. I don't know. Someone can Google it and figure it out. But there's so much power in a bolt of lightning, and it's free. If we could harness it, you could power the whole city, right?
Yeah.
So if you know that the water is going to rise, so option one, continue to build your houses and your neighborhoods in the areas that are going to get flooded out, and then whine and complain and submit insurance claims. So the insurance companies will be bailed out by the governments anyway about that. Or if nature's providing so much free energy, it's too hard to organize right now. But the concept is nature is providing and will now provide so much power on this planet. We need to go with that flow. Instead, we're just spending day after day, month after month, year after year, just getting smashed in the face and smashed in the head and burnt and drowned. And why? Instead of harnessing all that power. And
that's the thing that's gradually evolving, and I think I see it through in the even the billionaires going to space while people drown at the same time kind of paradox. Our attitude to nature needs to evolve. We need to understand that on the one hand, we are subject to the laws of nature. They're greater than us. They created us. They have a plan for us. But if we want them to work to our best advantage, then we need to adapt ourselves to them, and then we can extract all the energy and all the power and all of the benefit that you want from nature. we will be consciously in tune with the laws of nature and with where they're taking us. That's what the resolution that we need to get to from this conflict that we have with ourselves. Are we bigger than nature or smaller than nature? Should we take advantage of it, or should we try to, the climate thing? Think about the climate thing, right? The whole climate thing. Humanity is in such a split personality, split identity, bipolar attitude to this thing. I'm sorry if, by the way, if the bipolar example offends anyone. It's just a metaphor, right? But we have this with the climate thing, right? So on the one hand, again, think about humanity as one man, one human that thinks he or she is many 8 billion separated individuals, but we're one thing. We're one collective thing.
You're
So
saying that so fast, it's really like a massive concept, and you're
yeah,
going over it very quickly.
yeah, it's true.
Maybe slow it down a little bit.
I will try this. The what's important for me to express here, to make the point, is that, why did I bring up the climate thing? On the one hand, we know we are ruining the planet. This is not news to anyone. This is common sense by now. There was this, Chris, see if you can pull up this article that we brought here like a month ago or something. Scientists' like most recent conclusion about the climate crisis, right? It's like humans are doomed. We're gonna die, and the reason is that we are short-sighted because we're focused on our self-benefit. That's literally the title and the subtitle were something like that, and that's like earth scientists doing smart statistics and whatever. And that's really where we are. We know that we are misbehaving with regards to nature, and we also know that this is our own kind of, we're conscious of our own inability to change ourselves. And so that's the sort of the inner conflict that we are in. People going to space while people are drowning is part of the same conflict. It's just the two ends of this conflict are increasing. The tension between them is increasing. Man has to discover, this one man that exists, or this collective species has to rediscover it's a new attitude, a new conscious attitude and relationship with the laws of nature. And then we won't have
So
a
there's
problem with these floods and all that. Okay, go.
this we also have this antiquated mindset about Karl Marx really defined it like, the abusers and the abused, but here you could say it's like the super wealthy, and then like the going into space, and then everyone else getting drowned. But when you bring up that and the ones on this side say, have complaints against those, and these ones have no regard for those. But when you bring up that all of humanity is actually one man, so then we have some work to do to integrate both of those perspectives, both of those situations into ourself, to integrate those two opposite things that we see out there into one man, into one perspective, in a sense. Like if you they say that if you have only one eye, you can't see 3 dimensions. You need two eyes to actually see depth.
Yep, exactly.
So it's not enough to just be like leftist woke culture and then conservative, or it's not enough to just be poor people drowning or billionaire going into space. But somehow between these two perspectives, the true reality of what's happening comes into focus, and perhaps in the past,
well said, exactly.
Because in the past we didn't have there was always floods on earth, there was always fires on earth, there was always rich people building phallic things into the sky for thousands of years anyway. Those things have been around for a long time. Not until today, with our technology and how we feel, are we able to experience both of those in real time, all the time, in our
Plus, not until today, we were never globally interdependent. I can't stress that point enough. I don't care if you tell me there were floods and there were hurricanes before and people built stuff. This is a reality that did not exist before 100 years ago. That's it. We were it's an exponential dramatic shift in everything that we were 100 years ago. I'm just saying 100 years ago. Maybe it's like even 50 or something like that. And for sure, in the last 20 years, in the last 2 decades, the beginning of the 21st century, that's when this process is accelerating like never before. We've never we were never such a globally connected, interdependent species. And that means something with regards to the natural plan that has evolved us into this shape and form, into this mode of existence. So we're going to sense the laws of nature differently as from now on.
So what do I need to learn? What do I need to learn from nature now that I see these floods and there's going to be more, and all of these different between the fires and the floods and the wind, and who knows what's going to happen with animals and more virus things, and then on the other
Right.
side, people with billions and billions of dollars, who knows what they're going to come up with next and
Mm-hmm.
where they're going to go. And we didn't even see what the Chinese billionaires are doing, or the Russian billionaires are doing, or the Saudi billionaires, what they're going to come up with now that everyone's becoming so flamboyant with all this stuff. What is nature trying to show us?
There's a couple more things interesting about this whole space thing that we're still neglecting, but we're just
Okay, bring it
going
up.
faster to the um, now maybe we can integrate it somehow, but we have to grow up in our relationship with nature. Nature wants us to grow more conscious of this program that is nurturing us. There is some conscious relationship that we need to develop with these laws of nature, and the laws of nature have to do both with they determine both what's happening here on the planet and what's happening outside the planet. We're surrounded by these laws of nature, and just like the rat in the cage, we're like looking for like a way out, or looking for like the best kind of the best scenario or something like that. But these laws are everywhere. Did we talk about the how the this moon wobble thing that
We didn't talk
that
about the moon wobble yet.
we didn't talk about the moon wobble. The moon wobble thing, can you explain it? Did you
The
brought
moon
it up when
wobbles, affects the tides, but
right. So
it's not a new phenomenon.
no, it's not a new phenomenon, but why did I bring it? Why did it jump to my mind? Because it's just another example of how these laws of nature that are outside in space, they clearly have an effect on here on planet Earth. The the uh, the path that we're on is gradually developing a new relationship with the natural system. That's Kabbalistically, that's where the human being is headed, discovering a new sense in our attitude to nature and to each other too, because we put together that sense is a collective sense. Humanity is gradually it's on a course to discover itself as a single creature and its relationship with the single program of nature that guides all the laws, that determines all the laws of nature, everything that's happening
There's
in
something
this.
interesting that reminded me of this whole thing. I remember seeing on Joe Rogan, just to go back a little bit to how nature's developing us, and it's speeding up our awareness of what's actually happening. There was a guy on Joe Rogan. He went out for his first spacewalk, and Joe was interested in. He said, "Okay, so what was it like when you first saw the Earth from outer space looking down. There's this known effect
Right.
called the overview effect, where astronauts come back and their lives are completely changed because they see the world from a completely different perspective, and they can't go back home and look at it the same way. And this guy had said, that's what I felt. And Joe was pretty perplexed, and he asked, well, why would you feel that? And he said, well, these days we have HD images that are, you can see the Earth just as you would from outer space, maybe even more clear in some ways, because you have to look through that window. And
Right.
there's just something interesting there, like why. So now you don't human beings they don't need to aspire to be astronauts anymore to go see the Earth from that view, because they can kind of already see it. So it's almost like nature's also taking away these motivations to continue to learn, to try to get out of this box. Of course you have the billionaires who are doing it, but it's also like, it's not the same. It's almost like nature's cutting our legs out from underneath us and forcing us to look in a certain direction. Anyway, I thought that was
So
interesting.
here, that's super interesting. And it brings up a really good point that when there was the first moon landing and the guys got out, if it's not made in Stanley Kubrick's movie studio, but suppose they actually did land on the moon and get out and walk on the moon. There was, it was such an emotional experience for this country, maybe in the world. It was very emotional. There was teams and teams of people who made it happen, and the
Mm.
whole country was watching with bated breath when it
Mm-hmm.
happened. So the payoff was huge. To just Google it and see it, even if it's a beautiful picture, in 5 seconds, you can Google, some celebrity on the beach. It's like there's no emotion in it. And I think that's something that it zapped it out of me. I had no emotion about these guys going up into space. There was nothing. That's what nature's taking out. That's what's happening. One of the things
But
that's happening here.
but that's beautiful because that's part of the growth too. It's just like with the climate crisis. We are discovering how all of it is various aspects and discernments of man's attitude towards nature, the laws of nature. And if we go even deeper than that, more unconscious, more subconscious than that, it's our attitude towards our purpose. Our space, it's I see a direct connection. Look, it said it's written about Abraham, who was the one of the greatest Kabbalists. We won't go into Kabbalah history right now and the difference between that and when most people think Abraham, what he was, right? But we know from Kabbalistic sources that he was one of the big founders of the wisdom of Kabbalah. So, Maimonides, I believe, writes about him from like a couple hundred years ago. Anyway, he writes in his book about that about Abraham, and he writes that how did he discover the governing force of nature? He used to start from just questioning life, questioning the purpose, questioning the meaning and purpose of existence through looking at the stars, through looking at the cosmos from just with his eyes. He didn't have a telescope back then or anything. Just looked up to the sky and asked questions like, what is going on here? Are we on our own? Who moves all these celestial bodies? How there has to be some organizing principle, there has to be some organizing force. And he started to delve deeper and deeper in his research, except that he knew he was looking as if outwards into the sky, but he was really looking internally. He was looking inside. He was looking to discover that organizing force of nature inside within him through his attitude to the world, through his attitude to other people, to everything in nature. That's what he discovered. That's how he discovered nature's plan and started writing about it. And that was a huge milestone in the development of the wisdom of Kabbalah. And so the what's happening in all of this, now billionaires are going to space. Oh, and now Seth doesn't even care about it, right? And many other people, I'm sure, are just like indifferent to it. When was it, 69, when we first had like the picture of Earth from space? I think it
Something
was
like that, yeah.
something like that. Anyway, so From that, if you take that first, picture, and those 4K pictures that you have today, the difference in resolution is like in opposite value to the level of excitement, right? It's like we should have been a lot more excited, but that's another aspect that we are now feeling in our attitude towards nature and towards our quest. We start. There's something about these billionaires going to space that, on the one hand, brings out hope. That's at least what a lot of people are trying to feel. Oh yeah, mankind can now control. You can now occupy space in more ways. Like we
Does
went.
anybody actually
But
think that would do anything good anywhere else after seeing what's going on
that's
here?
a debate. That's a debate right now. I just I read a few articles. That's it. But clearly
I saw an
you
article
can see
yesterday that what's his name? Who's the guy who did Square and not PayPal, Square and Twitter? Jack Dorsey.
Dorsey. Yeah.
Jack Dorsey said his hope, he was at a Bitcoin conference, his hope for Bitcoin is that it helps to bring world peace.
Right. Right.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I didn't hear that one, but that's a good one. But you see,
How can you be so smart and so dumb?
well, because on the one hand you're looking for hope, and on the other hand you're like, just like, meh, like, and that has to do with human nature. That's where we are. The space is I still see it as a milestone, but not a what's happening now, but a milestone in human development, in our inner development, in our psyche is now has a new kind of attitude to play with, to work with. That's what I see that's happening. Also, about the overview effect thing that Chris was talking about, here's another hope versus hopelessness, or hope versus uh, disillusionment. There you go. Hope versus disillusionment is the right term here. Here's another one, right? So on the one hand, you have all these astronauts who are saying that the moment they went out of Earth, suddenly and this is the overview effect that Chris was talking about. This is a real thing. Astronauts who go to space, but it's not like Bezos and Branson. It's not just a few meters or whatever, just a little bit hovering, floating above Earth. They go to do a space station. They spend a few months there. They're looking at the planet from all kinds of directions. They feel weightless for a long time. Anyway, they look at the planet for a long time through a space station, and they feel from that experience that they're changed, that they suddenly get like they gawk at the oneness and the oneness of planet Earth and all its inhabitants. They recognize that all of humanity is this one thing together with the planet. This overview effect, right? So on the one hand, hope would tell you, so now the rich people of the world, look at how beautifully this can play out. The billionaires and the rich people of the world that they will take to space, who will be able to pay for this, all of them will go to space. They'll go through this great overview effect. They'll feel that we're all one, and they'll change their ideas about what's the best thing to do with their power and money and all that. And instead of evading taxes and lobbying for more opportunities to evade taxes, now they'll create a better world, right? So that's hope on the one hand, and then lame, of course.
Oh, it's nice
And
thought.
because
I
you're
don't
already
have.
in the disillusionment, and the disillusionment is, of course, that no, that's not going to change. That's not going to change them.
I
But
just
that's
don't feel like the good future is going to come from these guys.
of course,
For whatever reason, I just
but
don't think so.
but that too is a phase in human social evolution and recognition that we need to go through. We have to get to a point where we see that the only thing that can make a better world is humans starting to look for the meaning of life and the purpose of life through their connection to each other. That's the one thing that we avoid doing for thousands of years, if you will. From the moment our ego started growing and we lost that natural instinctive sense of togetherness, of being one tribe. The moment we lost that, now we're going to go to space, and we have the internet even, and technologies and whatever you want. We'll even suggest building a new humanity on Mars, as Musk is doing, right? Anything besides fixing the connections between us to feel each other as one, finding our life's purpose in that connection beyond matter, beyond time and space, discovering the oneness of that program of nature that created us, that governs our evolution. That's the one thing that we're not doing. But we have to grow disillusioned from all the rest. Yeah.
We have to grow disillusioned from all the rest.
Right. Yeah.
It seems as though we're looking at some billionaires, and it seems as though we're looking at some people, maybe even listeners. There's amazing things going on in the chat today. I didn't see a lot of question marks, but I peeked over. There's friends joined us from all over the world. But
there you go. I just see that Seraphim. We just talked about that. Maybe. Wait, let's see what he says here. If only billionaires would all go to space, that would be something. We'd never have to see them again. That's another thing. That's another hope and disillusionment. Okay. Now, yeah.
If there's a perspective, there's this. You called all humanity one soul, or one. What'd you call it before? One person, one man. How did you refer to it?
Whatever you wish. One man, one species.
There's one reality. There's one spiritual reality with no borders at all. No up, no down, no top, no bottom, no left, no right. It fills everything all of the time. And then we have some protein clothing. Well, it's actually still vegetative and animate clothing on top of a spark of that endless light. One piece of the endless light has the same qualities as all the endless light. If you look at one drop of the ocean, it's the same as all the ocean. It's just a drop, but it's the exact same thing
same
as
structure.
All of the ocean.
Yeah, it's a fractal nature of reality. Yeah.
What exists inside of each and every one here, what exists inside of each and every one is the endless eternal light. What happens on top of that is there's a clothing, it's called, of still vegetative and animate. That's your form on top of that, and from that we take in and we perceive reality in a very, 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 very limited way. Very limited way. As far away as you can see in space, reverse it. That's how far deep. That's the distance, so to speak. That won't change. The spiritual work that we're doing is to now be this person who can hold on a second, who can feel his own existence or her own existence and feel this crazy disparity between billionaires and then billions of people starving to death or with no food on one side, but the other reality, the endless reality, it doesn't even matter. At some point, we're not even identifying with this body, because I start to identify with my eternality, and that this body has a hard time in this incarnation. I start to identify with my thousands of incarnations or whatever. I start to identify with my eternal sense, that eternal light, and this whole incarnation then becomes about just bringing more of that awareness for the into the whole system.
And the tension between the two opposites is going to grow. The paradoxes that we're going to see, just like, people drowning while others go to space, that's going to only grow and grow as we head into the future. We're going to see how we have the potential to create heaven on earth easily, easily, because of technology and automation and AI and so on. It's going to be like a no-brainer. You can just give people all the food they need in the world. Done. You could do it today, but it's going to be even clearer that you can automate and make sure that people have like transportation, education, medicine, all of that. And then on the other hand, we just can't do it. Our current social global order and the inner psychology of people doesn't allow them to do it yet. Just like what we are feeling with the climate crisis, that it's clear by now. It's almost abundantly clear that we are causing harm, but we can't stop. you know
We're on a crash course.
yeah, exactly. We're on a collision course, and we don't want to stop even.
They're still
um
building
s-
homes on the beach. They're still building $1 million beachfront homes in
Same
Florida,
thing,
in
same thing.
exactly the place that's going to be flooded out within 2 decades. They're exactly building. Thank you,
Right,
Chris. Okay, how much? Starting at $3.9 million, beachfront homes. These things will be flooded.
right. Oh man. Hadul Spirit wrote here in the chat, all the money we put in weapons every year can end poverty like tenfold. Absolutely right. By the way, Hadul, this is another interesting thing with regards to the billionaires in space thing, right? A lot of people are saying, how does it make sense that the billionaires they're putting copious amounts of money into making this thing happen, right? And at the same time, that money, if you just look at it with, in abstract calculation, that money could have been used to like help the poor, or save people, bring more food to the world, to those who need it, and so on. It's funny that suddenly people see this very clearly, but what about the billions of dollars that are spent into, I don't know, the entertainment industry, right? That's like huge. If you take all the money that was spent in the last, I don't know, 50 years or 40 years on cinema and things like that. I'm deliberately using that example, right? And it's probably more than what those few people spent for going to space, but that's less obvious to us. Why is it less obvious to us? Because most people in the Western world would like to enjoy their movie and Netflix and whatever, So, but couldn't you make, instead of spending, I don't know, $1 billion on a few movies, couldn't you spend it differently? So now it's becoming more extreme. The potential versus the reality, the desired state versus the existing state, that is becoming more extreme. It's essentially what it is essentially. It's our ability to create a great life on for each other on this planet versus our potential versus our inability to do it, because we can't just do it. People just can't suddenly start investing in each other and creating and getting along with each other. Who can do that? We have to achieve such a conflict that we will grow an inner demand to rise to a new level of consciousness where this can happen. That's what needs to happen. Peace, prosperity for all, calmness in this world will never happen just from people starting to be good to each other. We can't be good to each other. We have to discover how incapable we are and grow a new level of consciousness where that can happen.
And
Yeah.
when people are despair, right? As long as we, it's like there's that super super funny Homer Simpson thing. He's like, "Please, Jesus God, please, I'll do anything you want," and then all of a sudden,
Oh
he's
yeah.
like, "Please just save me," and then the second he's saved, he's like, "Oh, sorry,
I'm good.
I don't need your
I'm
help.
good.
I'm good. I'm good."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's where we are. As long, we're like, "God, please, I'll do anything," and then it's like, "Oh, I just got it. Someone wants to buy my house for twice as much as I paid for it. Like,
All
I'm
right.
good. I'm good. I'll call you next week. And it's like,
Yeah.
please just help me get over this sickness and whatever. And then you start to feel better. And it's like, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. It's like once we become despaired, and we can do it without having to be in this terrible, terrible. We don't need to come to a nuclear war. We don't need to come to these terrible problems. We need to kind of come to that kind of. We really need to arrive at that. I don't want to say the word despair, but that realization, and almost an emotional despair,
There has to be despair in involved here.
that
Yeah.
we need a good life. We need
Mm-hmm.
connection. We need love. We must have it.
Mm-hmm.
If not, nature will bring us there through this bigger disparity. We'll see guys starting to build
And
their
and money will
towns
not
on.
save us, and great that the best technology in the world that can do all the best for us will not save us, and no heroes from humanity, will save us. Nothing. Only a change of heart in mankind, that we need a higher force to do for us. We need nature's force to get involved. That's the one thing.
This is what's ahead of us. We will
Mm.
succeed. Good luck, everybody. Let's open our hearts to feel
Yes.
the network, to feel the love between us. Let's help each other. Let's strengthen each other. Let's every time, whatever the eyes see, let's remember the eternal reality that we're only moving towards good, and we need to help each other to see that all the time. We'll be back next Thursday, 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern time, to discuss again and peel back the layers, what's going on in the world through the wisdom, the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. We saw all the chats today, and Asaf and Chris and I read through
Yeah.
all of those after the show. We want
Yeah,
to try and
thank you
actually,
guys for chiming in. We want to incorporate it more in our discussion. We'll figure out how to do that. That's what you wanted to say, right?
that's what I wanted to say. Maybe add a question mark if you ask a question there, so when we're scanning through during the show, we can identify where the questions are. Okay, everyone, we'll see you soon. Asaf, Chris, awesome to see you again.
Yes.
And see you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, let's just pretend for a second that everything's connected and it's also benevolent. Reality and truth fit for a dream. 8 billion lovers looking out for your well-being. No longer a need to concern for yourself, because in the new world, rich means building others' wealth. So everywhere you go, everyone you see is joyfully obsessed with taking care of your needs. When value is determined by who gives most, suffering and depression disappear like a ghost. If you're still not sure how this new life is born, there's a simple 3-step process to move us along. Connect in love, hold tight, and night will turn into dawn. Connect in love, hold tight, and night will turn into dawn. Connect in love, hold tight, and night will turn into